Welcome to The Micro Collector, a podcast where I talk with the founders and operators behind some of the most exciting micro brands and independent watch companies. I'm your host, Justin Dorfman, and in today's episode, I'm joined by Michael Happé, founder of Gavox. I always ask guests who else I should have on the show, and several founders pointed me towards Michael. After this conversation, it's easy to see why. His passion for watches, Gavox, and life itself is truly inspiring. In this conversation, we talk about Michael's journey from IT consulting to founding Gavox, the aviation and military roots behind the brand, his collaborations with squadrons around the world, and the incredible stories behind watches like the Aurora and legacy Ultima Necat. If you enjoy the episode, be sure to subscribe for more conversations with the people behind these incredible watch brands. And with that, please enjoy my conversation with Michael Happé of Gavox. All right, Michael, welcome to the Micro Collector podcast. I'm super excited to have you on today.
I'm super excited as well, Justin. It's great to be there.
Awesome. Well, I told you that I had Scott Lancaster from Edmonton Scott on the podcast a couple episodes ago. And what I like to do usually is at the end of an episode, ask, microbrand founders, who are other microbrand founders that I should talk to that have a great story and have amazing watches to share. And immediately he said your name. I think he's pretty excited about what you're building over there. But also, I think, he just heard some of the stories, behind your brand and thought it would be perfect for this podcast. So did a little bit of research and I think he's totally right and excited to dig in today. But maybe for those that aren't familiar with you, your story, you can tell us a little bit about just your background, how you first got into watches and ultimately starting Gavox.
Excellent. So my name is Michael Happé, and Michael, because my mother's American, Happé is a Belgian family name. So I'm half American, half Belgian, and it all started when I was 8 years old. I received my first watch, a Pelton. It's a French brand, and every time I was swimming, every time it had water inside and I had to clean it up, but it was labeled 25 meter. At the time, we didn't consider 25 is fine, but it was great to always go and open it until I found Casio. I was a freak of Casio. And then I finished with receiving a Tissot Ballade. And since then, I was completely hooked on watches. And I was very lucky to have a cousin working at Longines at the time as main designer. And he and I work together. It's easier to share our contacts, our manufacturer, to make something together and get more for less.
Yeah. And I know Longines has a history in sort of all kinds, like a long history in general, but there's, a pilot watch history there. I'm curious where that influence came from. I know there's also a little bit of a family connection to that. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about that. As I see in your background, lots of planes, and I've seen on your website as well, there seems to be a strong connection to flying and pilot watches as well.
Definitely. I know you've searched some things, but my grandfather was in the Flying Tiger, so it has a lot of meaning there. And that's why I developed the first watch, which was the Curtis P40. So a very simple watch that has everything it needs to be legible, to be piloty. And the rest of the family in California, they also all fly. It is crazy. And that's how I entered into making watch for pilots.
Very cool. Well, tell me about that journey of sort of deciding to start a watch company, because I think I saw that maybe you were in IT consulting before. You mentioned that you were passionate about watches. You had a cousin that was in the industry. There was connections to pilot and flying, so that I could see sort of that path. But it's a big leap to go, you know what, I'm going to quit my day job and start a watch company. What was that moment, or sort of sequence of moments that made you decide, you know what, I'm going to go and do this?
Okay, it's very simple. I'm an agricultural engineer. I studied university, then did IT, then worked as consultant, but I wanted by 40 to have my own company. And what best to make a company of things you like? So I decided to create already 15 years ago. I'm celebrating 15 years now of Gavox watches. And the first one was what I talked about the flying tigers. And once someone saw this watch, everybody wanted, hey, could you make one for a squadron in Belgium? And that's how it popped in. And now I'm made on military watches a lot of collaboration. And I love that.
So your entry into watches actually started with the military and started sort of with a professional use case and then went more consumer. Is that sort of the journey that you went?
I didn't think it would bring me to the military, but having friends in Belgium in the Air Force, looking at the watch I created for the Curtis P40, they said, can you come with something? We are celebrating our 30th anniversary of such squadron. Can you help? And of course, I entered the base in Belgium, showed them some ideas. We worked together for a few months. And then 4 months after, I had a watch for them. So that was quick and fast, but that was what they wanted. It is since that moment, it's been just word of mouth. I have not a single investment in marketing in Gavox. Everything is word of mouth, which is nice, very nice.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And I also could see how, you know, being a collector myself, I think we're drawn to watches that are used for real use cases. There's definitely the design and the fashion side of watches, but I think more and more I'm finding people very interested in watches that are used in, you know, use cases like actual flying of planes and you know real use cases like that. So I could see how the marketing almost creates itself through the stories of your customers on that front. Tell me a little bit, if you can, about what that collaboration is like. You know, when you create these watches for the pilots, do they give you feedback? Do they give you ideas? Do you get some inspiration from them that then leads to new models that you end up creating?
That's definitely what happens because when they come to me, they know I already done some watches. They've seen it on the wrist of someone else. So they come to me and I want to be different. So I want another type of watch. We are on the Navy. I'm talking about the guys in Whidbey Island near Seattle. And these guys said, we would like to make a brand new watch just for our squadron. And I was building up the Gavox Avidiver. And they said, I want to have this emblem, this then, it needs to be luminescent. So they came with great ideas. These guys have ideas. And I brought the ideas, and then how many watches? 15. Oops. Okay. Let's go. Let's go for it. Let's go. 15 is not a lot. But what was just amazing is once I finished the watch, show them samples, showed them images of what it would look like. And when it was time to deliver, I told them I have one condition. I am going to deliver the watch to you in your base and meet you guys. And that's what I did. I expected to be on the aircraft carrier Nimitz, but the Nimitz was in restoration near there. So we went to the base. And can I tell you the fun story that happened there? So 4 guys, they were asking me, can you set the watch on our wrist, the time and all that? Of course, quickly, quickly. And we go down, we go to the runway, and they were going to fly over Oklahoma for the end of the student or the student Super Bowl. And they were flying over, coming back. And what I know is these 4 guys flying these 4 EA-18G aircraft, the Growler, they got the watch on their wrist while flying.
That's super cool. I'm sure there's so many like fun stories of how your watches are being used in these use cases. You mentioned that they wanted 15 watches, and you mentioned that they came with you with all these ideas on the features that they want on that watch. I'd love to hear a little bit about what that process looks like for you. So you get an idea, maybe it's inspired by yourself or by some of your customers, start designing the watch, prototyping, sampling, and then producing the watch. How are you doing that? Sort of, are you doing the assembly yourself? Are you doing it with partners? And also 15, is a very small number of watches. I've heard from other micro brands that minimum order quantities when you are working with partners and factories and so on is a real challenge. How do you navigate that when you're starting at sort of these really small numbers?
First, I need to be crazy to be able to do that. But I think the fun part of meeting the guys is out outtake all the rest. But yes, when I design my watches, I have some models, the Squadron, who was really popular in aviation, and I produce enough case for future use. So when I make a watch, the case is already there. It's just matter of making PVD or stainless steel. But then the hands are customized. The dial is totally customized. And the case back has the name of everyone on the case back. So there's really a lot of customization there. And what I do is I don't want to, I have factories in China, I have factories in Hong Kong, and these dial maker, they tell me, hey, no, not 15, never. So I go for 100 and I throw at the rest. So this is part of the price they pay. I do more, I do the molding, but again, they have something unique. And that is great to be able to do something like that. For the moment, I'm speaking to some guys in Texas. They want a special aircraft watch for their squadron, and there's back and forth. What can I do? What they want, and some are possible, some are not possible. But it's always a great way that they participate in the creation of what they will have on my wrist. That's nice.
Yeah, I think that's really unique, to be honest. And I think there's a lot of designing and hoping that people will resonate with your designs and your functionality in the watch world. And to have such a collaborative relationship where somebody is coming to you asking for features. I've done some research into the history of watchmaking as well. And I feel like in the past that was much more common, right? Where the military would work with a watchmaker on certain features. So it's great to hear that it's being continued on. And I can see that it doesn't just resonate with those in professional use cases, but also with folks like Scott Lancaster, who told me,
Yeah.
wow, man, you got to check out these watches, enthusiasts, right? As well, because again, those sort of use cases, even though I'm not, flying in planes or diving deep into the ocean every day, it's just really cool to know that this watch on my wrist is being used for those use cases. And if someday I find myself in a James Bond situation where I'm going to do that, right? I have the watch to come with me on that journey. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about the collection as a whole, because I went on the website and I can see at this point, you told us about the first watch you made. At this point, you have quite a vast collection. Maybe you can tell us about sort of the overall collection, what we would find in there, and in your words, in your mind, what pulls the collection together, what ties the various models into what makes a Gavox watch.
I would like to think that I like my background of engineering. So with this engineering, I first started my watch with the Gavox Aurora. The Gavox Aurora is probably the most crazy watch out there. As a quartz watch, it has a perpetual calendar, moon phase, 2 time zones, so many features. You need to check it out. I even made a website just to show how to use the watch. And with this amazing watch I created, I did put 5 years of research, 1 year of fighting the Chinese who stole my brand because they wanted to steal. Yes, and it was amazing to go back and forth to Switzerland because it's the movement I made myself with them. So it's my development, and they turn out to be my client as well. to ask creating for other clients this type of watch. So it was the number one of the collection that I took so much effort into. And then I decided to make experiments so I can show the world what it can do. And I brought it in a balloon high in the atmosphere. And it went to 35-kilometer high, 122,000 feet high, before falling down in a wood. And I had to find a lumberjack to cut the tree to get my pictures and my camera back. And the watches, everything was fine. But yes, that is the Aurora. And I can tell you another who Scott talked about because he saw this one. So this is the Gavox Legacy. And Legacy speaks about the past. It seems like a watch that you could find on the ship. And this watch is, for me, honestly, one of my most elegant watch I've done. Not expensive, but elegant. And yeah, I have over 15 different collection now. It's 16 collections. And within this collection, I have a variety of different models. And I can stop. I cannot stop. I make more than what I sell, but I can't stop. I have fun.
Yeah. How do you decide? I've always wondered this as a watch brand grows. How do you decide what makes it into the collection? Because I'm sure, and I've heard this from other founders as well, that there's all kinds of ideas. You build prototypes and you build new watches. Some make it into the collection. Some you end up deciding, you know what? I learned a lot on this experiment, but it's not one that fits into the collection. In your mind, what separates that? What makes it, oh, this is a great addition to the collection? And also, as you build out that collection, how do you tie it together so that somebody looking at that collection feels, this is fits, right? This is part of the Gavox brand.
And that second part is difficult to fit everything together because my wish is I have not got a watch with power reserve. Let's make a power reserve. I have never tried a watch of 36 millimeter. Let's try that one. I like the size. And what will I use? Oh, I have a great story. For the moment, my last watch was called Bastogne. It speaks about the Battle of the Ardennes, the Battle of the Bulge, where American troops were surrounded by the Germans. And I'm being Belgium. In Belgium, they were. I'm being half American. American, they were. And they said something powerful on that time when the Germans said surrender. They said nuts. Never. We will never surrender. You better get your nuts. We won't surrender. But that story is powerful in Belgium. And it was the 80 years of that event. And so I created the watch last year. And this is my last one I've done. But the storytelling in everything I do has stories, a lot linking to my family, my ancestors, and my passion. And I love telling stories like that and using the watches as a conveyor to promote my life, my fun life. Yes, that's a way.
Yeah, it sounds to me like there's kind of two sides to it. One is, again, your engineering background where you're sort of pushing yourself, challenging yourself to try out new features and new depths that the watch can go in the ocean and all kinds of different milestones that you can reach. So there's sort of the engineering challenge, and then the other side is the story and how it resonates with you, the way you view life, right? And sort of your own family history. And I think that combination is really, really cool. And I think that combination is in essence what makes watches special, right? Is that these are marvels of engineering. The fact that, especially, when I think about, obviously even digital and quartz watches, but especially automatic watches, that these are powered by our movements and there's no battery in there. And they were created, 100 years ago with this technology, and the fact that it's still powering today is a marvel of technology and all the different complications that you can add to a watch. But on the other side, watches represent more than just the engineering. There's a story behind it, whether it's your family heritage or what this watch was used for, what it represents. So I think the fact that you're pulling those two elements together to really tie your collection together makes a lot of sense. One other side. So I heard a lot about the military use case of your watches, and we've talked a little bit about that. But I also have heard about it being gifted to diplomats and it being on the wrists of royal families. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, maybe some of the people that have been known to wear the watches, and also how did that happen? How did that start? You mentioned earlier no marketing. This to me is like the best form of marketing. How did that come to be?
I think it's about the journey. If I want to give everyone who makes a watch living your watch, living with the dream of knowing that these watch will be given or being on the wrist of anybody in the world, and just knowing it is wonderful. And I want to go the next step is not only selling the watches. I know every single of my clients because I sell everything from my store. I have nothing else. You can only buy through me. And this is precious. And when people start knowing and noticing that, oh, I would like to see your watches. And it became a watch that was gifted to the King of Belgium. And not once, but many times, because the Air Force gave one of mine to the king also at the same time. That was fun. But after, the prime minister, he noticed that, oh, in Belgium, we have a brand that makes cool watches. Why not ask him to create a watch with a Belgium strap on the wrist, a native strap, and we'll offer it to the king or someone else. And once the prime minister found out that these watches were beautiful, nice, and elegant, why not, when I'm going to go to United States, to the United Nations, why not gifting the watches to those important? And so I know that Obama has one. I know Ban Ki-moon has one. I know that the Queen of Jordania has one.
I was gonna ask, so do they tell you in advance that your watches are gonna be gifted to somebody like Obama, or is that something that you find out after the fact? And what was your reaction to hearing that, for instance, Obama is gonna have a watch on his wrist, one of your watches on his wrist?
Well, of course, when the prime minister started asking me watches, one thing I understood is I have beautiful watch for not too expensive price, so he could put that in his budget. And the budget of prime minister for gift is not very high. It's not like the external affair guy. So he got 120 watches from me and started gifting them. And I know really well her assistant, who told me every time, we just give this one to Obama, this one to the other one. So it's very exciting. And also the relation is really nice. And yes, I there's an life is well done if you go for it. It is just amazing how things can go your way. People would say it's universal, the universe talking to you. I don't know, but it works nicely.
Yeah, with that in mind, I had read an article, an interview with you, where you had said one of your favorite watches in your collection is the Legacy Ultima Necat, right? And I know there's a meaning to that. It's a Latin phrase, right? I
Yes,
believe,
yes,
and it really aligns with everything that you're saying here. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what that phrase means
yes.
and what that watch represents to you. Because and why you named it with that name.
The thing is, we are talking here about the Ultima Necat, and I wanted a watch with a power reserve. And the power reserve is a hand showing the time the watch has left. But what it symbolized for me, and it makes me emotional whenever I think about it, it's a watch that makes you better. Why a watch can you make you better? It's because it's telling you, hey, I know how much time I have left. But you, as a human, you don't know when you're going to be dead. So The idea of Ultima Necat is like memento mori. It was a phrase you could find on solar clocks on churches saying omnes vulnerant ultima necat. Every second's hurt, but the last second will kill you. But really, it means do every day something good. Look at your watch and say, okay, have I done what I expected done? Have I done what I promised to other? Have I said to my wife, I love you before you go? Anything can happen, but your life now is to use your life wisely. That's it.
Yeah, I love the meaning behind that watch. It's funny because before we were chatting, I was obviously on your website looking through all the watches. And the first one that really struck me was the Aurora because of just the amazing engineering feat, like you said. You mentioned all the functionality on that watch. But I think one thing that maybe you didn't mention is that it's got it's analog and digital as well, right? So you've got sort of both there, which is really, really cool. I also love just the look of the watch. And again, I think that this is a watch that if I wore to my wrist, people would ask questions about it, and I'd have that opportunity as a collector to tell them and walk them through all these features and just show how amazing the engineering is, right? But then I looked at the Legacy Ultima Necat, and it might be a little bit more formal of a watch than I would usually have in my collection. But when I read the meaning behind that watch, I just fell in love with it, right? Because it's something that when you look at that watch, you get that reminder that time is limited, and you need to spend it with the people that you love and doing the things that you love. And after hearing this conversation with you and a little bit of your story, I feel even more inspired because I see you not just naming your watches these things, but, practicing what you preach, right? You left your job in IT consulting to start a business in your passion. You're building these watches for these use cases and for these people that are inspiring you. And you're testing these watches in use cases. I know that when we were working on scheduling this podcast, you were skiing in the Alps and doing all kinds of things. And I could imagine you with the watch on your wrist as you're doing it. And I think we talked last time that you recently opened up a bar right near your house as well. So you're not just creating watches that have these meanings, but you're living these meanings. And I think that's an inspiration for all of us. So, if I wasn't sold before, I'm even more sold now, and I'm going to have one of these watches on my wrist soon.
Thank you. Thank you. But if someone gets a Ultima Necat, he will get the coordinate on the rotor at the back of where you can take a drink with me.
Really? Is that on the rotor, or is that a custom feature? Very cool. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what's next. What can we expect next from Gavox? Any new watches coming, any events that you're going to be attending where people can meet you and see the collection in person?
Good point. Good point. Yes, yes. I will go to events, of course. The next one is Vancouver, and I'm really looking forward. I choose my event because I like visiting as well. You understand? So Vancouver, I definitely need to go there. And after Vancouver, I have the biggest air show in Europe where it makes sense that I bring my watches there. It's in Riyadh, beautiful place, military all the way. It's huge. And then there's an event in Romania. Romania is a country I adore. I've been giving, I've been making two of my first foreign collection for Romanian pilots flying MiG-21. And I'm going to go to Singapore probably. I'm going to go to Czech Republic and Poland, Aurora soon.
Great. Well, it sounds like between the military events and the watch events, you're going to be keeping yourself busy. So hopefully folks that listen to this or watch this podcast and get inspired by your story and want to see these watches in person can catch you at one of those. I'm hoping to be at Spring Sprang Sprung in Singapore later this year. So I hope you are as well, and we'll get to meet in person. But as I said, Michael, this was even more than what Scott had shared with me. I loved hearing your story. I loved seeing your passion for what you're doing. and I'm leaving inspired and excited to add one of the Gavox watches to my collections.
Thank you. I just want to thank Scott there if he's looking, because he is generally super nice. I met him in Singapore and coming to me and, I love your watch. Let's do a little review of your watch. And I like the guy, and his watch are fantastic too. So it's a thumbs up for Scott.
Yeah, you know what? This microbrand community is so special. It's amazing when I do finish these podcasts. And as I said, I ask founders, who's somebody else I should chat to. Just the fact that everybody's sort of supporting each other and, wants to, like Scott did in your case, right? To showcase a fellow watchmaker's watch, right? And support somebody else in the community. So I think it's something that makes it really, really special. So I'm glad that we connected. And yeah, thanks to Scott for making the connection.
Yeah, great. Fantastic.
All right, Michael. Well, thanks again and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.